Clara the hummingbird always felt unusual. To everyone else she was bright, full of vibrant colours and so beautiful. But she was always just a little bit sad. Not really sad. Not sad enough for her best friend Riley to worry too much. But always just a little bit. She felt different. But she didn't know why. And felt a bit daft telling Riley. Riley was a lizard after all. And anyway, they were always so busy scuttling around collecting flies. One night, as Clara was having her dinner, she was listening to the wind rustling through the delicate petals and leaves all around her. And she seemed to be drifting off to somewhere in her mind she'd never been before. When she got there, the firebird she had met at one of Riley's parties was sitting on their extravagant flowery chair looking down at her. The peacock was there too, standing behind the firebird. Clara was always so intimidated by the peacock and the firebird. They were just so confident, so cool, and she wanted to be just like them. She wanted them to think she was funny, beautiful, interesting, and cool too. Then, out of nowhere, a flower of such a deep purple she had never seen before in her life sprung up. Cautiously, she tasted just a tiny bit of its nectar, which it seemed to be offering to her. All of a sudden, everything around her changed. She felt dizzy, and she could see all of the colours of the rainbow whizzing about in front of her, going in and out of focus. As the shapes slowly began to settle, she could just make out the shape of a flower, but it looked kind of like a kaleidoscope. Clara looked around her body. Her feathers felt heavier. She gasped. They were long and grand like the peacock's. Her beak was a little bit shorter and turned down a bit more. She thought this made her look a little bit more sophisticated, and all of her colours were just a bit more grown up. Wow, thought Clara. This is what it feels like to be like a peacock or a firebird. I'm just so classy. But where was Riley? She circled their usual patch, gently turning over leaves to see if they were hiding. But Riley was nowhere to be seen. Then Clara had a very worrying thought. What if Riley is scared of my huge feathers, my downturned beak, and doesn't recognise me at all? She felt a bit sick again. Clara closed her eyes tight and wished and wished and wished to look just like herself again. But when she opened her eyes, her feathers had grown even bigger. The peacock and the firebird were suddenly right beside her and leading her to a part of the forest she had never been to before. She should be excited, she thought. This is all she had ever wanted, to be like them, to be one of them. Clara tried to stop herself from crying, but her tummy was turning into knots and she was finding it harder and harder to breathe. She felt herself falling, and everything around her started to spin again. All the colours and shapes were blurring in and out of focus, and all she wanted was the peace and comfort of the familiar flowers and leaves. Clara closed her eyes tight again and took a few deep breaths, counting in and out. And in and out. Everything in front of her started to slow down. She saw a familiar foot peeking out beneath Riley's usual hiding place. Clara cautiously hovered closer and made a secret call that only she and Riley knew. Riley popped out from underneath their usual flower and cheerfully welcomed Clara as they always did. "Hiya, pal," yawning and stretching their toes. "Clara," Riley said with an unusually direct tone, "I wanted to ask you, are you all right? You seemed a wee bit sad recently, and I was a bit worried when I saw you dressed up a bit funny and spinning about in the sky last night with Peacock and Firebird. You didn't look happy." Clara felt an overwhelming sense of relief and began to cry. "Oh, Riley, it was horrible. I thought I wanted to look like them, to be like them, but then I couldn't find you. And my feathers were so heavy I couldn't even fly. I just wanted to be right here, to be me, and to hang out with you." "Cool," said Riley. "I think you're pretty brilliant, so I'm glad you made that decision. But see, next time you feel sad, you can talk to me, you know. You don't need to get all dressed up and spin about in the sky. I promise I'll listen." Clara smiled and felt happy. Riley really was her best pal. "Thank you, Riley. And if you ever feel sad or strange, you can talk to me too. I promise I'll listen too. I want to show you something, Clara, said Riley. Follow me. Clara loved flying along with Riley. Usually she flew high above. Sometimes they'd race. She always won, of course. But today, Riley asked her to hover just above them. Look, Clara, said Riley. Look really closely, just under this leaf. If you concentrate and go as close as you can, the most beautiful patterns appear. Riley was right. Clara had never seen such beautiful patterns. They didn't even need to be coloured in. The detail was just amazing. Riley and Clara spent hours looking closely at the leaves and the patterns they could see, and the water droplets. She felt calm, content, happy. This has been really nice, Riley. Can we do it again tomorrow? Asked Clara. Of course, said Riley. I'll meet you by the cheese plant, just after breakfast. Magic, said Clara.